Hi, everyone. Welcome to Psychological Statistics. I'm sure you're all as excited to be off of school today as my kids are. I'm not, because I hate getting behind. I'm Dr. Amy Hayes, and I'm excited to get to teach you statistics this semester. I made this little intro video since we are going to be missing the first day of class, just so that we don't get behind, to go ahead and walk you through how the course is going to work, what kind of assignments and tests you can expect, and talk a little bit about the schedule of what's coming up over the next few weeks. The last thing I'm going to do is a really quick math skills overview, which I had planned for the first day, but since our first day is a snow, ice day, weather needs to get its act together around here, I wanted to go ahead and introduce you to the course. So I'm going to start by showing you the slides that I was going to go over today in class. Let me get this set up. And tell you a little bit about the syllabus and the way that our course is set up in Canvas as well. So this is Psych 2354. It is statistics. I'm going to introduce myself, tell you what you can expect from the class, a little tiny bit about why you should care about statistics, and hopefully alleviate some of that math anxiety and do a little bit of an overview. Here is what our textbook looks like. It's called Basic Statistics for the Behavioral Sciences. It's by Gary Hyman. It is the 7th edition. This is the version of the book that should be at the bookstore. You don't have to order it from the bookstore. You can get it on Amazon or what have you. Just make sure it is the 7th edition, because earlier editions have different chapter numbers. And you should be able to find a used copy at the bookstore as well. The book is really, really helpful and well written. I like this textbook a lot. If you read it, especially if you read it before you come to the lecture where we're going to talk about that topic, he explains the concepts really, really well. And I keep going back to refer to it as well to help me explain the concepts to the class better too. So definitely get the textbook. It's very helpful. And there's additional practice exercises in there that are helpful as well. People always want to know what their grade is going to be based on. So in our stats class, we're going to have 4 exams, and the exams aren't really cumulative per se. They just kind of chop up the chapters into 4 pretty equal chunks. And so there isn't like a big cumulative final exam. The 4th exam is just going to be over that 4th chunk of material. All of the exams together are worth 65% of your grade, and then we'll also be having chapter quizzes periodically throughout the class, which are worth 35% of the grade. My students end up really liking the quizzes because it's a shorter little chunk of information. They're short in-class quizzes. We never take a quiz until we're ready to quiz over that material. So if you look on the syllabus, and we're going to look at the syllabus in a second, you won't see quizzes in there on the calendar. And that's just because I don't like to set dates for the quizzes ahead of time, because I don't want to say, oh, we're having a quiz on February 2nd, and then we're not ready to take the quiz on February 2nd. So the quizzes over the information are going to be whenever we're ready for the quiz. So that's actually something I did to try to help you, and not something that I want to be anxiety-provoking for you. The good news about that is I do drop your lowest quiz grade. So for whatever reason you end up missing a quiz or not being in class on a day we take the quiz, that can just be your drop grade. So lowest quiz grade, whether it's a 0 or 100, is going to get dropped out of your average. Let's talk about what you need to bring with you to class. So you're going to need to bring something to write with, pencils and paper. I don't have a policy about having laptops in class. I'm certainly fine with you wanting to take notes on your laptop if you want to. It's just something that doesn't usually work very well for students, because we're going to be like working out math problems by hand and writing formulas, and unless you're like super duper fast at typing and editing formulas in Word, that's going to be pretty hard. But whatever kind of technology you want to use for note-taking is fine with me. You really need to have a calculator for this class, and a calculator that's not your phone calculator. It's fine if you want to use the calculator on your phone for in-class exercises, but you're not going to be able to use your phone calculator for exams and quizzes for obvious reasons. Those are going to have to be put away. So yeah, you really just need a 4-function calculator. Something as basic as this works okay. It's easier if you have, it doesn't have to be one this fancy. This is my graphing calculator from high school. But the cool thing about having a calculator where you can at least see what you've typed in is that way you can go back and see where you've made a mistake. So you don't have to invest in a calculator that's this fancy. Just somewhere between this and something that's not your phone is what you're going to need for this class. And then any kind of handouts I've given you, you need to bring those to class as well. So I'm going to give you a formula sheet. When I first see you, it looks like this. You're going to get a blue formula sheet on the first day we have in-person class. And the cool thing about the formula sheet is that all of these statistical formulas you're going to have with you when you take a quiz or a test. You do not have to memorize these. Statistics is not about memorizing formulas. It's learning how to solve problems with data. And so I don't need you to memorize the formula for a regression. I just need you to remember which formula to use. So definitely bring your formula sheet with you every day, exam day, quiz day, regular class day. And then once we get later in the semester, there's some types of problems that we're going to learn how to do where there's going to be like a little table that you're going to have to use that I'm going to give you a copy of. So make sure anytime we're working on those types of problems, if I've given you any tables or handouts that I say you can use, make sure you bring those with you as well. So I'm going to give you a lot of practice problems and homework. When I give you practice problems and homework, those are not going to be for a grade. So it's up to you to do those. We are going to work practice problems every time we learn a new skill. Time permitting, we can work several of them. And I'm always going to give you practice problems to do on your own time that aren't for a grade. I always also post worked out examples, so my own work to show you kind of exactly how you work through these things step by step. And I've also made some videos of me working out some of these problems that I'll show you where to find those on Canvas as well. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for practice. I really think you should take advantage of those opportunities. And what my students always ask me is, okay, I really want to do well in this class. I'm nervous about doing well in this class. So what should I do if I want to make sure I do well? And here is what I found helps most of my students. Come to every single class. Don't miss a class. Don't skip the day after exam day because you're like, oh, well, we just had a test. We're going to start new information right after that test. Every day that you miss, it's going to be a piece of information that you didn't see me explain and you're going to feel behind. So I would really recommend, barring some kind of emergency, come to every class. I don't give you attendance points. So you guys are adults. It's going to be up to you. I would read the book chapter ahead of every class. So if we're going to be talking about Z-scores, chapter 6, you need to read chapter 6 before you come to class. I'm a psychologist, so I know that the more times you've heard and been able to process information, the better that you know it. So if you've already read the chapter about Z-scores, it's going to make even more sense when you hear me talking about it. Make sure that you bring the correct materials with you. So bring your formula sheet, bring something to write with. You're going to feel behind and you're going to have stress if you come to class not prepared with the pieces of paper that you need. Make sure that any practice or homework problems that I give you, you actually do them. It's very easy for me to tell when we get to a quiz or a test when somebody has not ever practiced working one of these problems out. It is not going to go well for you if the first time you're trying to do an independent samples t-test is when you get to the quiz. That's not going to go well. You should come see me or TA Stephanie, who I'll introduce to you next week, for help. We have lots of time set aside for you to come see us, to take advantage of talking to us. I'm going to get a big whiteboard in my office that's going to get hung right there, and we can work through some problems together. I'm really excited about it. And just know that I'm going to give you a lot of extra opportunities for practice and a lot of tips for studying, so make sure that you take advantage of them. All right, so let me show you the kind of resources that we have set up this semester. So here's what our course looks like for you on Canvas. Here is where you can download a copy of the syllabus, which I will go over with you in a second. This welcome page right here has my information on it as well. And we're going to be updating Stephanie's office hours there when we get them. So as you know, our class is going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 12:20 and admin 127. Here's my contact information, my email, my office phone number. If you've had me for a class before, I want you to please just note this is a new office that I just moved into this semester. I'm in BEP 252, which is just right down the hall from where our advisor, Mr. Carrillo, is. And my office hours are going to be from Monday from 10 to 12, Wednesdays from 10 to 11, and then by appointment. I know that these office hours are not going to work for everybody. I teach a lot on Tuesday and Thursdays, so those are just the best times for me to set them up. But if you need to meet with me sometime outside of those hours, send me an email and we can set up an appointment. We are very lucky to have a skilled and experienced teaching assistant this semester, Stephanie Masters. She's worked with me TAing for this class several semesters in a row. She is going to be holding tutoring hours, and as soon as we get a room set up for her to do that tutoring very soon, I will email you details about that as well. The way that our Canvas page is set up for our class is that I have everything grouped into 4 different modules, and each module really just corresponds to the 4 tests that we're going to have. So here's all the chapters for the very first exam. I have it broken into these pages by kind of little content units. This is where you can find what it is that we're going to talk about. Here's any slides, and any homework that I give you or practice problems are going to be posted here as well, and usually an answer key is posted here too, which should be really helpful. So every chapter that we go over, you're going to find slides here, you're going to find practice here, and then at the end of every module, I have one that reminds you when the exam is going to be and a set of review slides that I'm going to go over in class. And I have also made some videos that are posted here where there's any special worked out examples, or I've recorded me working through some example problems in a special recording studio that we have. So that's just another opportunity for you to see me work through a practice problem, which should be pretty helpful. Here's what the syllabus looks like, which you can download from here on Canvas. This is the class and my information again, textbook information, objectives for the class. Here is that grading information that we talked about. Again, I'm going to drop your lowest quiz grade. One thing that I want to point out that you might be excited about is that when you're in class taking a quiz or an exam, Stephanie, our TA, and I are going to do what I call accuracy checks. So when you're working out a problem for a grade on a quiz or a test, when you're done working through a problem, you can raise your hand and I can come over and tell you whether or not your final answer is correct. And so you know if it's right, you can go ahead and move on. And if I tell you your final answer is not correct, like you're a little bit off, I can look through your work and kind of try to help you figure out where it is that you went wrong. So I don't want you to make one tiny, teeny little error on a quiz and that just like tank your whole grade. That's why we do these accuracy checks. And then another really important thing in the syllabus is a course calendar, and it has laid out every single day of class what it is that we're going to be covering, what chapter we're going to be covering in class, and when the exams are. Let's talk about this really quick. So as you might have noticed, if you've already looked at the syllabus, I have on here that we are not having class this Thursday. So you can probably tell that I was getting a little bit anxious, and the reason I made this video is because I'm freaking out that I'm not going to see you for the whole entire first week of class. So several months ago, I got asked to be on a statewide committee to work on setting psychology curriculum for public universities, and our first meeting that's mandatory is in Austin later this week. So I already had kind of built in here that we weren't going to have class this Thursday, and now we have weather happening and we're also not having class on Tuesday. So that's just why I wanted to go ahead and get the ball rolling. So I'm going to say that again at the end of this video, but just please remember we are not having in-person class this Thursday because I will be out of town at a conference. You don't have any assignments due this week. We're going to really hit the ground running next week on Tuesday. So let's get back to statistics, why you should care. So I know all of you are sitting there thinking, okay, listen, lady, I signed up to be a psychology major because I don't want to have to do math. So what am I doing here in statistics as a psychology major? And I will just say that a good foundational knowledge of statistics is applicable to almost any job that you might have someday in psychology or any other field. It's actually really hard for me to sit here and think of a job that knowing statistics is not going to help you. If you want to go to any kind of graduate school someday, if you want to go to, especially if you want to go to a PhD program, but even if you, and I want to put this in air quotes, just want to be a counselor or go into a master's program, you're going to need to know stats for that as well. If you want to go into business or some sort of industry job, some sort of very applied field, there's almost nothing I can think of. If you want to be a lawyer, where knowing how to think about the relationships between different kinds of data is not going to help you. I cannot tell you how many people I consult for who ask me how to do really basic statistical stuff that you guys are going to know by the end of this semester. It seems like magic to people who don't know it, but you guys are smart enough and you're going to be able to do it and be marketable. So when I say the word statistics, I don't want the numbers to intimidate you. Statistics is just a word that refers to some statistical procedures and then the answers that we get from those procedures. So there are some very, very smart people, way smarter than me, that have come up with these specific formulas that we're going to learn about that let behavioral researchers analyze the results of the research that they do. So we're going to learn about some formulas that are really just tools to help us figure out, did we find what we thought we were going to find? I'm sorry, I'm sitting here in my office, which is right by the bell tower, and the bells are chiming very loud. I don't know if you can hear them. So what do researchers do with statistics? So everybody in the psychology department who is a psychology professor is also a researcher. So I don't know if you knew this, but we teach, but we're also engaged in scientific research as part of our job. It's not a side project, it's part of our job as a professor. And we use statistics, I use statistics every day as a tool to help me answer the questions that I do in my empirical research. So just basic things. If you wanted to know what percentage of transfer students graduate in 4 years, that's a statistic. What if you want to know how you compare to other students? So I got a 1260 on my SAT. Where does that put me in the grand scheme of everybody who applied to UT Tyler? That's a statistical question. What if you just want to do some research and figure out, does your relationship status, so whether you're single, dating, married, divorced, affect how well you do in college? Is it related to your grades? All of those are empirical questions. And when I say empirical questions, empirical means it's knowledge that we can figure out through observing events. So when we do empirical research, that means we're asking a question and we're measuring some kind of outcome, getting some kind of score that we call our data. And empiricism is the idea that it's our job as scientists, and I'm a scientist, psychologists are scientists, it's our job to figure things out by observing them directly. And so you say, okay, as opposed to what? Any kind of logical argument that you make that isn't based on direct observations of things that you've gone out there and like collected data about, that would be non-empirical. So anytime you just write a research paper, like a basic literature review, and say something like, well, based on this, I think this is how relationships work, that's not empiricism. Empiricism is the idea that we have to go out there, collect data, and answer our questions by observing the world around us. And the way that we answer those questions through our data is by doing these statistical procedures that you're going to learn about in my class. So it's really important tools, essential tools for the discipline of psychology. So this is a really big one. And I wish I could be sitting with you in person so that I could help, again, alleviate some of that anxiety. What if you think you're not very good at math? So let me say for the first time, and you're going to hear me say this throughout the semester, this is not a math course. Statistics does involve some mathematical operations that you already know how to do, like adding, subtracting, doing a square root on your calculator, etc. But these are just the steps involved in using the research tools that we need to answer our questions. Statistics does not involve any complicated math stuff. There's no calculus. There's no algebra. It's basically, we're going to learn how to use these formulas that I'm going to teach you about, plug in our data, and answer questions about it. My mom is a mathematician, and she gets really offended when people call statistics math, because she was like, statistics is not that hard. So listen to Pam, listen to me. This is not a math class. I'm not going to be teaching you how to do math. I do need you to know how to add and subtract, and I do need you to know how to use a calculator. So what if you are intimidated by all the statistical notation? So why are statistics written using all this strange symbols and terminology that are unfamiliar? Statistical notation is just a standardized code for symbolizing these operations that we're going to use, like this big, looks like a weird S is a summation symbol. That just means add up all of the things on the other side of this. I'm going to teach you what all of the symbols we need to use mean. And then I always get this question, can't we just do statistics on a computer now using these fun programs like SPSS? So the answer is yes, that's what I do. But you can't just jump into using these programs without knowing how statistics works. You can't just jump into a program and say, I'm going to do a correlation, if you have no idea what a correlation is. So you have to know how they work, and then you have to know when it's appropriate to use it. There are some types of data that use some kind of tests, and other types of data you use other types of tests for. And you need to know how to do all of the things we're doing in this class in order to use the programs. So I use a statistical software package called SPSS in my research. SPSS doesn't pick the statistic for you. I have to know how to do that myself. So I hope I've convinced you a little bit, and I'll try to keep convincing you this semester, that statistics is useful and important, and I don't want you to think of it as scary. I want you to think of it as a tool. And I think that is enough statistics for today. So please remember that we are not having class this Thursday because I'm going to be in Austin at a conference. So what you need to be doing is just go ahead and getting your textbook, reading through the syllabus, and start reading. Go ahead and read chapters 1 and 2. When we come back next week, I'm going to be talking about chapter 2 in class, and we're probably going to have a quiz if we're ready, if I feel like we're ready, sometime in the middle of class on Thursday the 25th over these first 2 chapters. So go ahead and start reading. Please email me if you have any questions. And I'm really excited to see all of you when the weather is better and we finally get back.